One more roll of the dice ought to do it.
We've looked at the villains of nearly every movie in the Disney animated canon, but what about the animated movies that exist outside of that label? From Roger Rabbit to A Nightmare Before Christmas, the non-traditional films are often just as beloved as Disney's main animated films, and the same holds true for their villains. So take a seat as we go through some of these features and see how their villains stack up against the court of law. I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is Sentencing Disney Villains for Their Crimes, the Miscellaneous Films.
Let's play.
The first film we'll be looking at today is an often overlooked one, but a classic in the eyes of those who remember it. May the villains of The Brave Little Toaster please rise. Starting us off is a villain who is known only as the Clown. This character plays an extremely minor role in the film, appearing only in a dream sequence, but what a scene it is. He visits Toaster during a nightmare and has just one goal in mind: to kill the little kitchen appliance. That alone means we can charge him with attempted murder, but beyond that, we cannot say there is much this clown is guilty of other than looking creepy. And if we're being honest, couldn't that be said for every clown? Making things even harder when it comes to sentencing this Joker is the fact that he only exists within a dream. Some will say he shouldn't count because of that reason, but since we've covered witches and tons of other fictitious beings, we think it's only fair that we try him as well. With all of that said, we sentence this creepy clown to a large dose of community service. Between his tiny role, one actual crime committed, and the fact that he's little more than a figment of Toaster's imagination, we can't really justify giving him a particularly lengthy or harsh sentence. Still, when it comes to clowns in the world of movies and television, this is one you'd probably be best not getting on the bad side of. Now it's time to talk about the real villain of the film, the simply named Giant Magnet. While this villain plays a small role, not unlike the clown, this guy is anything but a dream. The giant magnet takes junkyard items and tosses them onto a crusher where they are sure to meet their end. It commits an act of murder when it throws a living car onto the conveyor belt where it is subsequently crushed into a cube. The magnet also becomes guilty of attempted murder when it tries to take out Toaster and his fellow appliances. A villain who is as imposing as he is quiet, the giant magnet might have a small role in the film, but that doesn't stop him from being one of the more dangerous adversaries featured in today's video. For that reason, we sentence this magnet to death. To make his fate a bit more poetic, we believe the punishment should be carried out via the same conveyor belt he threw so many helpless victims on during his lifetime. To the scrap heap he goes. We're gonna take a little trip down to Toontown to judge the villain of this next film, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Coming up to the stand is the one, the only Judge Doom. Arguably one of the most terrifying villains Disney has ever brought to life, Doom is the judge of Toontown and the leader of the Toon Patrol. He has but one goal in his mind at all times: to get rid of each and every toon there is. Right from the start, this means we can charge Doom with attempted genocide, but his crimes certainly don't end there. He commits murder by dipping a cartoon shoe into the dangerous substance known as dip, and was also the one behind the death of Eddie's brother. Considering the intensity of the former, we can go ahead and charge him on the grounds of torture too. Doom is guilty of attempted murder as well on account of his efforts to stamp out Eddie, Roger, and many of the others who stand in the way of his plans.
They're calling it a freeway.
Lastly, it's pretty safe to say that Judge Doom is one judge who likes to abuse the power given to him. He uses his social status to further his political agendas and to get rid of those he deems a threat instead of using this power to make Toontown a better place. With all of that said and done, how could we give Judge Doom anything but the death penalty? The toon to end all toons, Judge Doom poses a major threat to all the inhabitants of the land land he resides in, and we find the idea of rehabilitating him too implausible to take seriously. It really is a no-brainer here. As for how the punishment will be carried out, while we could speculate and theorize, let's be honest with ourselves. There's no worse fate we could give him than the one he got in the film. It's time to get a little festive as we look at the villains of the next film, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Kicking things off, one of the most terrifying residents of Halloween Town, Oogie Boogie, takes the stand. After discovering Santa Claus and Jack Skellington's plans, Boogie wants nothing more than to rule. He is intent on overthrowing Jack to become the new Pumpkin King, and he'll do anything to make sure that goes according to plan. This already makes Oogie an attempted usurper, but that is far from his only crime. He both kidnaps and tortures Santa Claus after meeting him, and later does a similar thing to Sally as well. In fact, he tries to cook both of them in a stew, making him the only villain here today that we can call a cannibal. And like any devious mastermind, we can charge him with 3 counts of attempted murder. 2 of them stem from his attempted cooking of Sally and Santa, while the third comes from his encounter with Jack when he arrives to save the others. A foe that can go toe-to-toe with the Pumpkin King should not be taken lightly, and because of that, Oogie Boogie is yet another villain who gets the death penalty. How the penalty will be carried out is anyone's guess, but considering the kind of stuff that goes on in Halloween Town, we think we're better off not knowing. Regardless, we're sure it will be anything but pleasant even for a supernatural being like Oogie. Oogie Boogie might be the villain of Nightmare Before Christmas, but he's not acting alone. Enter his accomplices and our next batch of criminals, Lock, Shock, and Barrel. A rotten bunch of trick-or-treaters, this trio is ultimately responsible for finding and capturing Santa Claus, thus setting into motion many of Boogie's actions in the film. That means they aid their boss and commit an act of kidnapping, but other than that, these 3 don't really participate in a lot of villainy.
Lock, Shock, Barrel.
Sure, they do like themselves a good prank, but are pranks necessarily a crime? We don't think so. Despite that, these guys still have 2 criminal charges under their masks, and we think it's best if each of them gets 1 year behind bars. While they are devious in their ways, we don't think they're particularly malicious. They might be troublemakers, but they are not evil in the way Oogie himself is. A year in prison might be just what they need to see the error of their ways. At the very least, it'll spare the denizens of Halloween Town their pranks for a year. We move from one stop-motion favorite to another. It's time to discuss the villains of James and the Giant Peach. It's not an assortment of Disney villains until we see some sinister siblings, and these next 2 may be worse than most. Introducing to the stand, Ants Spiker and Sponge. These 2 are the ants of James that have taken care of him ever since the passing of his parents. We use the phrase taken care of loosely, as it would be far more accurate to say they've done anything but. They are undoubtedly guilty of child abuse on account of how poorly they treat James. The 2 beat him, barely feed him, and often talk down to him as if he were an insect. After James goes off with their prize Peach, the 2 chase after him and nearly kill him when he begins to stand up for himself.
The boy.
That's only 2 criminal charges these ants can be tried with, but they are hardly ones anyone would want to be associated with their name. Considering the severity of their crimes, we think the most appropriate punishment for Spiker and Sponge would be to serve life in prison. While they may be rather cartoony and over the top, their crimes are anything but. These 2 ants might have had a rough time throughout this film, but it will surely look like a cakewalk compared to what prison will have in store for them. And Spiker and Sponge are the primary villains of James and the Giant Peach, but there also exists another who is far more dangerous and a lot less physical. This is no other than the Rhino. The Rhino first exists as the being that killed James's parents, but in the film itself, it is more akin to a personification of all of James's fears, making it one of the more unique villains in Disney's catalog. While we can't exactly punish a character for what they are pursuing, perceived as, we can definitely judge them on an account of what they've actually done. In the case of this rhino, it has killed 2 people, and because of that, we believe that this beast should be sentenced to death. While we don't see these acts committed in the film, they have a huge impact on both James's life and his mental well-being, and that's more than we can say than even some of the other villains who we've given this punishment to. It will hardly be an easy thing to carry out, but we truly believe it's the best course of action given these crimes. But real quick, before we get to our last entry, if you're enjoying the sentencing format, make sure to check out our Cinema Sentencing channel. We'll actually be sentencing characters from live-action movies and television series over there. Link below. We have but one more villain to look at, and he comes from the 2011 CG film Romeo and Juliet. Introducing the Red Gnome, known only as Tibbled. Based on this same character from the original Shakespeare play, Tibbled is Romeo's rival, and he'll do anything to prove that he is the better gnome. While it seems more playful than anything else at first, their relationship does start to take a darker route. He assaults Romeo when he learns he has left the garden, and also does the same to his friend Benny after he accuses him of cheating during a race. Later in the film, he tries to kill Benny, but only chops off his cap.
Well.
In this one instance, he becomes guilty of attempted murder and vandalism, showing that this garden gnome has a bit more of a temper than most would think. While he's hardly the most dangerous individual we've covered today, Tibbled still has a dark side to him, and it's that element of his character that gets him 5 years in prison. Hopefully, the time will be enough to get Tibbled to change his ways, but only time will tell. Hey, we think he'll prefer it over being smashed into a ton of pieces.